Morning guys, it's bank holiday today and it's rainy. It's the August bank holiday and it's rainy. This morning on my day off I was watching, for the last few days I've been watching 9 Brass Monkeys Becoming YouTube series to help me become YouTube or be part of YouTube or just get good at this. And today's episode was talking about the lack of women on YouTube. There's not very many females that I found that haven't been doing beauty vlog. I have done a couple of beauty vlogs and I'm no expert in that, but I thought that that was my way into YouTube and I didn't want to do that. That's not why I want to come and express myself on YouTube. That's not what I want to do. And 9 Brass Monkey, his video this morning on women in YouTube, introduced me to a new vlogger called Emma Blackery. I started to follow her this morning, and I also follow Tyrannosaurus Rex, which I mentioned in a previous vlog. And they're what I want to be. I want to be me and funny, but I just want to talk about general things, not show you how to be more womanly by creating beautiful locks or beautiful fingernails. That's just going to bring sexism into the vlogs, I suppose. One of the vlogs that I was watching this morning that Emma did, Emma Blackery, I'll leave the links for her and Tyrannosaurus Rex down below. One of the vlogs she did this morning was dating tips. Now this was 2012 when she did this video, so things have changed a little bit over the last 2 years, but she kept saying not to meet people online. She kept saying that that's a bad way to meet people, and I just wanted to respond and say it's not. It can be great. That's how I met Andrew, my partner, and after years of trying, I split up with my previous boyfriend and it took me 6 years to find Andrew, and going online was really the only way that I could date. There was nobody at work. I was set up with a couple of my friends' friends, but that didn't work out. I think that was more awkward for me. So in this video, I just wanted to tell you about some of my terrible dates. And not all of them were terrible. There are a couple of guys that I dated and I wanted it to continue, but it just didn't, and they were lovely and gentlemanly and I can't criticise them in any way whatsoever. But I just wanted to share my stories. When I talked to Andrew, and he's always said that if anybody asks how we met, I think he feels a little bit embarrassed about the fact that we met online. And I don't think people should be. I think a hell of a lot of people do it. I think it's the most acceptable way of doing it now, and a few years ago it wasn't. Tip number 1, don't lie on your profile. One of the guys that I met up with, his profile looked great. He was a little bit eccentric. He said that he lived on a barge, which isn't to everybody's taste. He was witty with it and charismatic, and he said that he was 6 foot, which is taller than me. I'm only about 5'6". So I went on this date with him, and because he was taller than me, I put 6-inch heels on, and then when it came to the date, he came to here on me because I'd got my heels on. He was so short, it was so embarrassing. If he told me that originally, I probably just would have been fine. I'm not sizist. He just lied on his profile and then he turned up and he was just above my elbow. It was so funny. And then, not only did he lie about that, but he didn't live on a barge. He lived in a caravan, which again is fine. But why lie about it? Tip number 2, don't take somebody on a date to where somebody you know or a relative works. That's just a terrible idea. I went to one of my favourite bars. His brother is the manager there, and so there was that extra pressure on me to make his family like me, and it was hard enough trying to make him like me. And now every time I go into this bar, I see his brother, and I'm always thinking, does his brother recognise me? His brother, who's in this bar, is lovely chappy. I was organising to go on a date with this guy, and so a different guy, but I ended up going to the same bar to start with. But then we went on to the all-you-can-eat Chinese around the corner, and I made the stupid mistake of telling my dad and his then girlfriend, now wife, that's where we were going. And they decided that's where they were going. I didn't tell this guy, but that was really awkward because Dad and Sandra were pretty much on the next table over from me, and so I was just so embarrassed all evening. And luckily he had no idea who they were, so there was no extra pressure on him. I did tell him at the end of the night, and I think that just weighted him out. It would have weighted me out. Number 3. If you're a man, try to be a gentleman. Try to do everything to impress the girl. I mean, be yourself, that's fine. But don't end the night taking a piss in front of her. That happened to me. That was a weird one. We started off at the local Wetherspoons. And then he decided he was hungry, so we went across the road to the kebab shop for a pizza. And then he decided he needed the toilet. And instead of going back to the Wetherspoons, which was just across the road, we walked up the road to the taxi, and then he just pissed. I mean, he did go behind a bush, but I knew what he was doing. I could hear him. He wasn't drunk or anything like that. And talking about being gentlemanly, I'll tell you about Dick. And he was a dick for 2 reasons. Because his name was Richard. Yeah, I'll name him. I'll shame him. His name was Richard, therefore I called him Dick, behind his back, because he was a dick. He drained all the confidence out of me. I just became a nervous wreck around him all the time. He was so mean to me. But one of our dates, I remember he was always late to our date. Always. A good half an hour, 45 minutes late. But the first time he did that, I remember texting him, and it was pissing it down outside. He'd gone to find an umbrella, but then on the way home, after the date, still pissing it down, he has this umbrella, would not share it with me. He said, no, it's my umbrella, I'm not going to let you borrow it. You should have gone and bought your own. How silly of you not to have an umbrella. Such a dick. And then just before he split up with me, he let me know that in Derby, they were filming Embarrassing Bodies and that I should go along. Like just how much that hurt me was ridiculous. Are we on tip number 4 now or 5? Don't go out the night before and get really, really drunk and then throw up on yourself. My story is that I went to a friend's uncle's barbecue. He got me really, really drunk. I don't know what he gave me, but he got me really drunk. I've never thrown up like that before, or even passed out. I passed out from this amount of alcohol that I'd had and threw up all over myself. And then instead of going home, I just went and stayed at my friend's house. So I got up in the morning in the same clothes, with sick on my shoes, and then went on the date. Now, I thought the date was going really, really well, but that's because I was still drunk from the night before. That's never good either. And I joked about there still being sick on my shoes, and this guy thought that it was hilarious. It was really funny. And so there I was sitting there thinking, perfect. He's so nice. He's finding the funny side of this. This is going to be a great story to tell the kids. But he didn't want to see me again after that. I mean, he was perfectly nice on the date, but he soon texted me saying no thanks. And another tip number whatever. Be yourself. I know that everybody says that, and it's the really obvious thing to do. Really, it works. And when one of my friends set me up with one of their friends. Now, it didn't happen. Nothing happened with us, because I just wasn't interested in him. But I could tell that he was being himself, and it was lovely, and the date was so relaxed. And we got on really well. It's just that he wasn't my type, and there was no spark there or anything like that. He was himself, I was myself. There was no nerves going backwards and forwards between each other. So that is one of my favourite dates. We just went for a curry, and it was just really nice and simple and relaxed and had fun. I think he had fun. If you have a date that you think is really well but then nothing happens from it, it doesn't matter. You can't go on these dates thinking this is going to be the one. It's just going to make you nervous. Just go with the flow, see what happens. One of my favourite tips that I saw on this blog this morning was how to fill the awkward silences. And it's just to ask questions about the other person, which is fine, but sometimes those questions like, oh, what do you do for your job? What are your hobbies? Oh, do you like this football team? They can just, especially, I went on a lot of dates and I asked those kinds of questions a lot. And they got tedious and boring, especially when the guy is just like, oh, I work for the council. I don't really like football. There are some guys who are like that, so you can ask as many questions as you like, but sometimes you're going to get just normal, boring answers. So I like to mix it up a little bit. I'll ask questions like, so, what do you prefer? Haribo eggs or Haribo cola bottles? If they like cola bottles, I don't like cola bottles, So we can share a bag of Haribo and they can have all the ones I don't like. See? It's the perfect guy for me. I have asked Andrew about this as well, and his tip for dating is drink. Not stay hydrated, but drink alcohol. But for our date, I think it certainly helped him. He can be quite nervous sometimes, and I think not only was the drinking helpful for him, but also the going up and getting to the bar and giving ourselves a little bit of a break from each other. Because it can be quite intense just spending 2-3 hours continuously talking, looking at each other. So if there's that silence coming up, you can excuse yourself and go to the bar. And obviously it's also nice to say, oh, would you like a drink? I also would not recommend going for a meal. Not straight away anyway. There have been cases, like I was just saying earlier, I went for a curry, but we went for a drink beforehand for an hour before deciding to go on for a meal. And that's because I got the sense of what he was about and I liked him. But I have been on dates where it's just been a meal right from the start, and then the guy's there licking his knife or eating like an animal. And I'm sorry, you can lick your knife in your own living room, but when you're on a first date and you're trying to impress somebody, that's not the way to impress somebody. Something that not anymore, but something that I was really guilty of is if I was on a boring date, I would have the phone on the table next to me so that I could text somebody, and I would be texting them saying, oh my god, this guy's so boring. Or, oh my god, he just did this. Or, oh my god, he just licked his knife. And I'm apologising now to anybody I went on a date with, and I did that with. No wonder I didn't get a second date with you. And actually, I've been flicking through the August edition of Glamour this morning, and I've come across an article about the new rules of online dating. And one of the rules I agree with. I don't agree with what they say about the rule. They say, don't just use one site. Now that is a great tip. I was on Plenty of Fish, Dating Direct, I was on another one, and there was no harm in doing that. They do say that there used to be a fear of being on more than one site. For example, people would think, what would happen if someone saw me on this site and then they saw me on another site, and then they'd think that I was desperate because I'm on 2 different sites. If they've seen you on both sites, they're on both sites. They're just, I'm not going to say as desperate as you, but you know, they're doing it too. There's nothing to be worried about having different sites. It's fine. It just casts your net further afield to catch those fish. And then my final tip, this is for Andrew. When you've been dating somebody for as long as we've been dating, don't pretend that your first thought when you saw the person on your date was, oh, where's the exit?